When 8-year-old Marcus walked into the courtroom, everyone laughed. The little boy looked at Judge Frank Caprio and said with a firm voice, "Your Honor, my father is innocent, and I'm going to prove it to you." The room filled with laughter, until they saw what Marcus pulled out of his backpack. Asterisk within the historic walls of Providence courthouse that Tuesday morning, the usual formal atmosphere prevailed. Judge Frank Caprio sat at the bench with his 40 years of experience, sipping his coffee while waiting for the first case of the day. The cool autumn air seeped through the large windows of the courtroom. When the doors opened, the sight that entered surprised not only Caprio, but everyone in the courtroom. An 8-year-old child was entering the courtroom with no adult accompanying him. Marcus Williams, clutching his blue school backpack tightly, walked determinedly toward the judge without making a sound with his sneakers. There was determination on the child's face, but also a slight fear. His big brown eyes scanned the room, trying to figure out where to stand. Asterisk court clerk Lisa Henderson had been doing this job for 20 years, but had never seen anything like this. She stood up in astonishment. Son, where are you going? This is a courtroom, not a playground. Where's your family?" Marcus stopped and looked at the adults around him. The room was completely silent. Lawyers, court staff, even other litigants waiting were focused on this little visitor dot. With a clear, determined voice he replied, "I know this is a courtroom. I came to defend my father. My name is Marcus Williams, and I came here today to ensure justice." At these words, the room filled with a slight murmur. Some smiled, others looked on in amazement. No one expected to hear such words from a child this age. Asterisk Frank Caprio adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. In his 40-year career, he had encountered all kinds of people: angry criminals, crying victims, nervous lawyers, but never had an 8-year-old child spoken to him about justice. "Son," he said in a soft but serious tone, "it's not appropriate for children to be alone in court. This is against the rules. Where's your family? Who brought you here?" Marcus took a deep breath. He had obviously expected this question. "My father is in jail. My mother is working. Nobody brought me. I came by bus. But I know my father is innocent, and I'm going to prove it to you." This answer completely changed the atmosphere in the room. Nobody was laughing anymore. The child's seriousness and determination had impressed everyone. Asterisk Frank Caprio stood up and came down from the bench. He bent down to get to Marcus's level. "Marcus, right? Who is your father? And you're making very serious accusations." "David Williams. They're accusing him of the robbery at First National Bank. But Your Honor," Marcus's voice began to tremble but lost none of its determination, "my father is a good man. He doesn't hurt anyone. He doesn't steal anyone's money. He always taught me to be honest." Frank Caprio walked to the case table and pulled out David Williams' file. The incident was indeed serious. $50,000 had been stolen from First National Bank. Security cameras showed someone who looked very much like David Williams. Moreover, two witnesses claimed they saw him at the scene. "Marcus," he said, returning, "this is a very serious accusation. There's evidence about your father. Security cameras, witness statements." "No," Marcus suddenly shouted, his eyes welling up. "Everyone got it wrong. My father wasn't at the bank that day. He was with me all day." Asterisk Marcus began to open his backpack. His hands were shaking, but he was determined. "I have evidence too. The police didn't listen to me. My father's lawyer was too busy, but I collected them." He pulled out a small pink digital camera from his backpack. "This is my mother's old camera. My father always loves to photograph me. We need to record memories, Marcus. He always says. Here's my proof." He handed the camera to Frank Caprio. Although the judge wasn't very good with technology, he tried to take the camera. Court clerk Lisa rushed to help. "Your Honor, the things this child brought." Young lawyer Jonathan Mills began to object, but Frank Caprio stopped him with his hand. "Let's see what's there first," he said with determination. When the camera was turned on, the photos that appeared on the screen shocked the entire room. David Williams and Marcus were having a picnic in a large park. Photos taken while the father was pushing his son on the swing. Frames taken while they were laughing together. And most importantly, the date and time information was clearly visible under each photo. These photos, Frank Caprio took off his glasses and looked more closely at the screen. These were taken on the day of the robbery, and the time, 3:10 p.m., 3:15 p.m., 3:20 p.m. Lisa read the photos one by one. The robbery took place at 3:20 p.m. The room was now completely silent. Only Marcus's rapid breathing could be heard. Marcus smiled. "There's more, Your Honor. My father bought me a very nice ice cream that day. Chocolate vanilla mixed. I always get it like that." He carefully pulled out a folded receipt from his backpack. This receipt, from the ice cream stand at Riverside Park. It has the time due. Frank Caprio, examining the receipt, shook his head in amazement. The receipt was real and coincided exactly with the time of the robbery. Moreover, the ice cream stand was on the other side of town, at least 20 minutes away from the bank. "Riverside Park," he murmured. "This is very far from the bank. You can't be in two places at the same time." Jonathan Mills stood up. "Your Honor, these receipts can be easily forged." "What a child brought, lawyer." Marcus turned to the lawyer with sudden courage. "You don't even know my father. How can you say he's guilty?" This sudden outburst filled the room with a slight stir. The child's courage had impressed everyone. "There's also this," said Marcus, pulling out a small blue-covered notebook from his backpack. "My mother taught me to write down what I do every day. Memories fade, Marcus, but what you write stays, she says." He opened the notebook and showed the page for that day. In childish handwriting, what he had done with his father that day was written minute by minute. 1:45 p.m. Dad came home early from work to p.m. We made sandwiches together to 30 p.m. Went to Riverside Park 3 p.m. Got ice cream chocolate vanilla 3:15 p.m. Took photos 3:30 p.m. Played on swings 3:45 p.m. Fed ducks for p.m. Returned home as Frank Caprio examined the note. Everyone in the courtroom held their breath. The robbery had taken place at exactly 3:20 p.m. and according to Marcus's writings, his father was eating ice cream with him at that time. Lawyer Jonathan Mills stood up, his voice harsh. "Your Honor, these are just a child's writings. They have no legal value. Moreover, these writings could have been written later. A child trying to manipulate the court." "Shut up," Marcus shouted, his eyes red, tears streaming down his cheeks. "You don't even know my father. My father is a good man. He doesn't hurt anyone. You adults always do wrong things. You always blame innocent people." This sudden and emotional reaction silenced the room completely. The child's sincerity, his desperation and determination at that moment had deeply affected everyone. Some spectators' eyes had welled up. Frank Caprio stood up and walked toward Marcus. He knelt down to get to the child's level. Marcus, "Look at me, son," said Frank Caprio in his softest voice. "You are a very brave child. I've been doing this job for 40 years. I've rarely seen anyone as brave as you. But tell me, did you really collect this evidence yourself?" Marcus wiped his tears. "Yes, as soon as they arrested my father. I started immediately. I looked for evidence every day after school. The police said you're a child, you don't understand. The lawyers didn't listen to me. My mother said, Marcus, adults will handle it. But nobody handled it. So why? Why did you try so hard?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Because my father is my hero. He always taught me to tell the truth, Marcus. He says, truth always wins. Sometimes. It takes time, but it wins. He can't lie because he didn't teach me to." Frank Caprio's eyes welled up. The determination in this child, his belief in justice, and the love he felt for his father had deeply moved him. Frank Caprio stood up and turned to the court clerk. "Lisa, I want this evidence examined by the technical team. Have them check the metadata of the photos, the authenticity of the receipt, paper quality, ink analysis, everything." Then he addressed the room. "This case is postponed. The evidence brought by this child will be seriously examined using scientific methods." Marcus looked hopefully. "Does this mean my father will be released, Your Honor?" "I don't know yet, Marcus, but I promise, if your father is truly innocent, if you're telling the truth, Justice will prevail. I believe in justice just like you. Do asterisk in the following days. The evidence Marcus brought was subjected to comprehensive examination. The technical unit of Providence Police Department, FBI digital analysis experts, even specialists brought from the private sector examined this evidence. Digital camera analysis, metadata information was completely authentic. The photos were indeed taken on the claimed date and time. Receipt analysis, paper quality, ink age, matching with cash register records. Everything checked out. Diary analysis, ink analysis, writing age, paper examination. Marcus's diary was indeed written that day. But the most important discovery was made elsewhere. In the re-examination of bank security cameras, an interesting detail emerged. When the footage thought to belong to the criminal was analyzed again, it was understood that this person looked very much like David Williams, but was not the same person. FBI facial recognition expert Dr. Sarah Chen prepared the report. There's a 73% similarity between the person in the footage and David Williams. However, ear structure, nose bridge angle, and walking style are different. More importantly, security cameras at the locations Marcus showed were also examined. Cameras at Riverside Park showed the father with his son, exactly at the times Marcus claimed. Asterisk as investigations deepened, the real criminal emerged, Daniel Peterson, someone David Williams knew from his former workplace. He had deliberately worn clothes similar to David's, even cut his hair the same way. When Peterson was caught, he confessed, "I knew David. He was a good man. Nobody would suspect him. I tried to look like that too." Asterisk the courtroom was full again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. This time Marcus came with his father David. David Williams was smiling despite having spent a week in jail. He was holding his son's hand tightly. The press was there too. 8-year-old detective ensures justice for his father stories appeared in all local newspapers. When Frank Caprio entered the courtroom, everyone stood up, but this time not out of respect, but with excitement and anticipation. Asterisk Frank Caprio stood up and spoke into the microphone. "Mr. David Williams, please stand up." David stood up. Marcus followed him. "Mr. Williams, a great injustice has been done to you and especially to your son Marcus. A week ago here, thanks to the evidence your son brought, the truth came out." Raising his voice, he continued, "As a result of comprehensive technical examinations, all the evidence brought by Marcus Williams proved to be authentic. Photos, receipt, diary, everything was real. Moreover, the real criminal was caught and confessed to his crime." The room erupted in applause. "Mr. Williams, all charges against you have been dropped. You are free, and as the state, we officially apologize for the victimization you experienced." Asterisk David Williams hugged his son with tears in his eyes. "Son, you saved me. You are a real hero." Marcus smiled. "I just did the right thing, Dad. You taught me, truth always wins." "But how did you think of collecting all this?" "Mom told me, Marcus, if you ever face injustice, be strong enough to defend yourself. So I defended my father." Asterisk the courtroom applauded, standing for minutes. Not only court staff, but other litigants, lawyers, even Jonathan Mills, who had objected to Marcus, were applauding. An elderly woman stood up from the middle of the room. "This child taught us all a lesson. Age doesn't matter when it comes to giving up." Another voice, "Marcus, you gave everyone courage." Frank Caprio raised his hand, asking for silence. "Marcus, you taught me the greatest lesson in my 40-year career. Justice doesn't recognize age, doesn't recognize experience. Justice comes with belief in truth and never giving up." Asterisk then he added with a smile, "Marcus, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Marcus answered without thinking, "I want to be a judge, Your Honor, like you, so I can save other innocent people too." At these words, the room filled with applause again. Frank Caprio walked toward Marcus and hugged him. "Marcus, you are already a judge, because you can distinguish right from wrong. You fight to the end for what's right, and most importantly, you believe in justice." Asterisk David Williams stood up. "Your Honor, I don't know how to thank you, both for ensuring justice and for the respect you showed my son." "Don't thank me, thank your son, Mr. Williams. He is a real hero. You are also a very lucky father. You gave Marcus a valuable education. Frank Caprio turned to Marcus. You restored my faith in justice. Sometimes adults develop cynicism under the name of experience. You reminded me what pure love of justice is. Frank Caprio stood up to say his final words and addressed the entire room through the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, today we all learned a very valuable lesson. We must not remain silent in the face of injustice. Whatever our age, experience, social status, we must fight for what we know is right. Marcus showed us that even the smallest voice can create the greatest change. A child found the truth that was overlooked by the system. Why? Because he believed in justice unconditionally. This wasn't just a court case. This was the triumph of courage, determination, and love of justice. The room gave a standing ovation for minutes one last time. 6 months later, Marcus came to visit Frank Caprio. This time, it wasn't a normal child visit. Providence municipality was going to give Marcus the Young Hero Award. Marcus, how do you feel? Asked Frank Caprio. Good, Your Honor. But I'm still sad. Why? Because there are more innocent people. I only saved my father. What about the others? Frank Caprio smiled. When you grow up, you'll save them too, Marcus. You carry the spirit of justice. This story is not just a courtroom story, but also a unique example showing the power of courage, determination, and love of justice. 8-year-old Marcus Williams managed to reveal the truth that no one wanted to listen to. Sometimes the greatest heroes come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes justice comes simply by believing in truth, thinking systematically, and never giving up. Marcus is now 14 years old and still wants to be a judge. He's president of the Law Club, representative of justice advocacy in the Student Council, and according to Frank Caprio, he is already a judge of the heart, because true justice doesn't live in laws, but in human conscience.